All right, there we go. We're live. Hey, everybody. Drew B. Harrell here with Nine Leadership. And today I'm here with our Monday Motivation live stream here with Anne Brennan, who is awesome. And I'll let Anne tell you more about herself so you guys can learn more about her. So, Anne, take it away.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. By the way, that was really cool, your opening there. I'm Anne Brennan. I own ASMM Digital Marketing. We are a digital marketing company that does social media, basically. That's our first and foremost love. We do social media for small businesses, and we do email marketing and websites and all of that. But social media is where our sweet spot is. We help people build brands through social media and become more human online. So that's our big thing. And I also started a charity for suicide prevention called Burgers and Bands for Suicide Prevention. Started it with my son, Ethan, and we created it in order to help people see they're not alone, because so many people think that if they're struggling with depression, if they're struggling with suicide ideation, if they're struggling with anxiety, they think they are all alone in it. And that's the worst feeling. So that's our goal, is to put it out there in a way that helps people understand that other people have been there too.
I love that. I love that work you're doing with the Burgers and Bands. It's a really cool idea. And it's needed, especially right now, right? I mean, like there's so many people who have been going through this depression, have been going through everything with because of COVID and being restricted from seeing
Exactly.
family members and friends. And we're looking to get back into that now again with this second potential
Yeah.
lockdown.
And it's scary because I think people, one of the things that you said, we talk about depression, is that you get into this point where you're like, there's no hope, there's no way out. And when we first started with the pandemic, it was, everybody kept thinking, oh, it's going to open back up. Things are going to open back up. It's going to get back to normal. It's going to get back to normal. Now, what 6, 7 months in, 8 months in, and this hasn't, and not only that, but we're looking at more. And so it's so easy for people to lose hope that something better is coming. So if we can all start talking about it and saying, no, this is really hard for me. I mean, I run a suicide prevention charity, and there are still days when I go, oh God, how am I going to make it through today? Right? If it can happen to somebody who does what I do, it can happen to anybody.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And there's just so much you're doing that I want to talk about, but I want to talk about Burgers and Bands for a second, just to focus on that.
Yeah.
If you don't mind sharing a little more about, what it is and how it came to be and, the work you're doing right now, that I love for folks to hear more about that.
Absolutely. So what we did, we started the charity. We for a few years. So my son, let's just go back. My middle son had really bad depression starting in 2013. So for about 3 years, we had 5 hospital stays, 3 suicide attempts, 3 month stay in a hospital in Chicago. It was horrible. Our family. It was just horrible. And he survived it. And it was the most surprising thing to me. I lost all hope in the middle of it. And I thought, we're not going to keep him. I actually got to a point where I wrote down, here are the steps that I have to take when he finally succeeds. So that's how deep into this depression we were. When he came out of it, and we all survived, we wanted to do something that would show people, first of all, to raise money for American Foundation for Suicide Prevention at the time. So we were doing these walks through the woods, just Ethan and I, and we'd walk for 24 hours straight. We'd start at 7 o'clock one morning and walk all the way through until the next morning through the woods with the bears and the snakes, rattlesnakes, and copperheads, and all kinds of things. And we're walking through the woods raising money, which was fine. But we weren't telling anybody. We weren't showing anybody that it's okay to start talking about this. So in 2016, I started my business. And in 2017, 8 months later, I decided I wanted to do something to really show people that they weren't alone. So we started Burgers and Bands. And the whole idea of it was, there's a place called Severna Park Tap House over in Severna Park, Maryland. And it has this wonderful outside area. And I thought we could put bands out there. People can come in and have burgers, and we'll raise money. And so I planned it in about 3 weeks. Our first one I planned in about 3 weeks. We had 10 bands. All of them played for free. It was pretty amazing. And we raised $8,000, which wasn't bad, but it wasn't where we are now, which is, a lot more than that. So the second year we did it, we had 2 stages. We had, I guess we had almost 20 bands, and we raised 45,000. And then our last event before COVID, so October of 2019, we raised $65,000 at that event, and we had 27 bands in 3 stages. So all of the bands donate their time. All of the bands donate their efforts ahead of time to really drum up people coming in. And it's the best party you'll ever go to. There's nothing sad. We say no sad songs, no sad speeches. You can talk to me if you want to share your stories. I'm there to listen, but mostly it's happy. Mostly we're there to say, hey, there's hope at the end of this. It looks dark now, but there's hope. And that's the whole point of of it. It's actually, if you want to go learn more, it's burgersandbands.org. And you can see, if you go there, there's a page, About Me page or About Us page, and you'll see a video of our 2019 event. It was absolutely amazing.
That's so awesome. It's really, really amazing. I mean, there's so much out there like that's, you know, towards raising money for all kinds of campaigns and whatever kind of thing. But I mean, I think that there's stuff that like that, where it's like really grassroots. It's really grown for folks who are dealing with real challenges, right? Like,
absolutely,
you know, it's amazing. That's amazing work.
Well, I keep thinking it must have been needed, because the fact that we did this the first, and I laugh about this. When I did it, I said, I'm never gonna do this again. This was so much work that first year, never doing it again. And within the first 5 minutes, somebody came up and they're like, you're definitely doing this again next year. Like, this is awesome. And I was like, absolutely, we're doing it again next year. And
awesome.
And now we do 2 a year. Actually, last year we did 3, but the third one was in New Zealand, which was incredible. Just amazing opportunity that we got to bring it over to New Zealand, because they have such a high suicide rate over there.
That's amazing. I mean,
yeah.
So tell us more about how you grew that. Like, how did that go from 8,000 to 65,000? You know what I mean? Like in terms of just was it grassroots? Was it did you change things around in terms of social media? How was it?
We did a few things. So yes, it was definitely grassroots. It was definitely the fact that people came and they went, oh, this is what our communities needed for a really long time. So that was part of it. The second thing was I hired in my office, I hired an assistant. If you're an entrepreneur, I know a lot of your guests are entrepreneurs, a lot of your listeners are entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur, it's hard sometimes to think I'm going to hire somebody. Well, I hired somebody not for Burgers and Bands, but for my business. And when she found out about Burgers and Bands, she was like, can I help with that too? And I said, sure. And she says, okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get sponsors. And I hadn't done that the year before. Our $8,000 had just come through ticket sales and people donating the day of, or getting, I think we did some raffles, things like that. But that second year, we raised $45,000 the second year. And that was all through sponsorships, almost completely through sponsorships. We actually made the ticket sales go down to $10 a ticket. So it was much cheaper to come in. And we did get some other donations, but the sponsorships are the biggest part of it. And then because I own a digital marketing agency, we have two clients who are number one and number two clients. First is ASMM. That's my number one client at ASMM Digital, because I am committed to making sure that my business is on social media in the right way. But our second client is Burgers and Bands. So we really promote it well. As a matter of fact, if you have a chance to go over on Facebook, go to Facebook / Burgers and Bands, and you'll see all of our bands. We had 20 bands up, I guess maybe 17 bands up this weekend, and they all donated their time for this weekend. We did a virtual event, so you can see what we do there. It's really fun.
That was my next question, was going to be if you're doing a virtual event, which you obviously just did. That's fantastic. How was it?
Yeah, it was okay. You don't raise nearly as much money. But one of the things that we try to be clear on is we have two goals at Burgers and Bands. Yes, we want to raise money. We give some of it to American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We give some to NAMI, and the rest goes into schools. So we call the schools, we say, what do you need? And they ask for grants. So we've done things like build peace walks or sensory walks. We've done calming boxes, which are these boxes that have fidget spinners and toys that kids can hold in their hand when they're in class. We've done all sorts of training for counselors and teachers for therapy. So these are the sorts of things we do. This week, because of the way we had to do it, we knew we weren't going to raise that much money. But while the money is important, the biggest goal for Burgers and Bands is to show people, hey, you're not alone. And when you see these videos, you'll see it really is an uplifting thing, and it really does get that message across to everybody that you're not alone in your battle.
That's awesome. And that's so huge. I mean, a lot of it is feeling alone, right? It's like feeling like no one else is dealing with this, or no one else is with you as you're going through this.
Exactly.
So that's really
Drew,
awesome.
I want to tell a story if you don't mind, because I think it will explain how much we think how much we really think that we're alone in what we're going through.
Please do.
So about 2 years ago, I was lying in bed. We all have our phones when we're about to go to bed. So I was on my phone and I get a text, and it's from a lady, and she says, Ann, I'm really struggling. I need to know what to do. And I said, well, you say you're struggling. I said, are you suicidal? Because it's a question you should ask. Are you suicidal? And she says, yeah, actually I am. I don't think I'm going to make it to tomorrow morning. And I said, can you hold on a minute? Stay here with me. Don't go away. I'm going to call 911. And she says, and I said, are you going to stay with me? And she said, yes. And I said, okay. I said, it won't be scary. This is what they're going to do. They're not going to send police. They'll send the mobile crisis unit. It'll be unmarked cars. And so I'm talking to her as I'm talking to them. And I'm saying to her, do you have anybody you can call to be with you right now? Anybody who can come over right now? And she's, no, nobody. I've told nobody about this. Nobody would understand. And as this is happening, I get a Facebook message that comes through to my phone as well. And this woman says, Ann, I really need a therapist. My depression is so bad. I said, are you suicidal? She said, no. I said, okay, so let me give you a list of therapists. I said, do you have anybody you can talk to? And on both of these women, I'm kind of hinting, do you have anybody in your life you could talk to? Anybody who you're really close with? No, nobody who would understand us at all. Turns out these two women run together every single morning. And I knew this. This is why I was hinting at them. You can talk to each other. You know, they would understand, but both of them thought the other one wouldn't understand. And they did finally, because the one ended up in the hospital for 3 days. When she came out, she had to say where she was. And she shared that story. She said, that's where I was. And the other woman was like, oh my gosh, I have gone through the same thing. I'm going through the same sort of depression. So we think we're alone, but you know, everybody around us, I seldom find somebody who's has not gone through it in some way.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really about the stories we tell ourselves, right? We're telling ourselves these stories that we're alone, that we're the only ones dealing with this. No one will understand. No one will be able to relate, and no one will care.
Right.
And
exactly.
At the end of the day, that's just not true. But we're telling ourselves these stories. And so that's huge. That's huge that people can understand that, to get that message out there. People will know, like, listen, other people are dealing with this as well. You're not alone. You know, you're not the only one dealing with this.
Yeah, the more you talk to people about it, you know, when we are out there, we've got our big sign that says you are not alone, and we have people take pictures with it. And when every time, I mean, we have literally 2 exceptions of all the hundreds and hundreds of people who have held that sign and taken pictures with it. 2 people have said they haven't gone through it. And both of them said it so vociferously that we're like, I think you're protesting too much. So we don't believe that's true.
Yeah, well, because there's also the perceived stigma, right? And I say perceived because it's not real. It's a people. You think people are going to look down on you for feeling a certain way or for going through this kind of thing, and it's really not the case. You know, like in reality, the folks in your life who care about you, your friends, your family, even your coworkers, if they knew or had any kind of inkling that you're going through this, judgment wouldn't be the first thing on their mind. The first thing on their mind would be, are you okay? How can I help? You know,
absolutely.
But people don't understand that kind of, you know, they tell themselves a story that they're worried about looking bad. They're worried about, you know, about not being the rock that they are for people, you know. And a lot of times the people who go through this are people who are there for other people.
Absolutely. And we say check on your strong friends. You know, because it's your strong friends. Somebody, I just interviewed Frank King because, you know, I have a podcast. And so I interviewed Frank King the other day. He is a comedian who also has really bad depression. And he said that. He says, you know, so often that's exactly what people think is that, you know, they're the strong ones, so they have to be strong. And he's like, you shouldn't worry about your friends who have depression right now. Right now, they're equipped. They've got a plan. They're like, okay, I have depression. I know this is a thing. I have to go for a walk. I have to use my coping skills. I have to have my team. But the people you have to worry about are the ones who are like, nope, I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's good. And by the way, fine is a 4-letter word that begins with F. And that's not a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's huge to know that. And people, you know, I talked with another person, the guy I was connected with, James Corbett. He started this thing for veterans, which is fantastic, and I'll connect you with him as well. But this whole thing is, he started this thing where it's essentially like a buddy check, radio check thing, where they reach out and they have these Zoom calls a couple times a week where they all get together, and whoever wants to join, there's no obligation to join every week, but if you need a buddy, you jump on, right? And you just talk and you just share your story or listen to other people's stories and hear what's going on with people in the world around you.
Right.
And it's huge, you know, just knowing that other people are going through it too.
Well, if you consider that, you consider 22 military suicides a day, and still a guy in the military thinks he's all alone in this struggle, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got 20, my son, when he was going through it, he said, Mom, no one will understand. No one will understand this. I can't tell anybody. And then we took him to the hospital for the first time. They said, where do you go to high school? And he goes, oh, I'm at Severna Park High School. And they go, oh, Suicide High. So if they know it's Suicide High, then you're not the only one at that school who will understand what you're going through. Most kids at that school have gone through it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's the thing. That's the thing to keep in mind is really, and it sounds so trite, but you are really not alone in your battle. If you just speak up, it will be okay.
Yeah, exactly. And seeing through that other side, the other side of that fear is what you need to try to push towards, right? It's just
absolutely.
It's unfounded fear. It's fear about looking bad. It's fear about not being the strong person, what it looks like. I'll tell you what, many of my clients who deal with suicide or who deal with suicidal thoughts or who deal with depression, some of the strongest people I know. And dealing with that on an ongoing basis is you have to be strong to deal with that, right? And
exactly.
That's just
and I think asking for help is the hardest thing you'll ever do. So it takes a lot of strength to ask for help.
Yeah, to be vulnerable, absolutely.
Exactly. So and it doesn't have to be, just so everybody knows, it doesn't have to be I've got to go sit in a room and bare my soul and talk about all the sad things that are making me sad. There are lots of things you can do. I mean, even just, this is so silly, but I knit, and knitting is a great way for me to take my mind off of whatever's bothering me long enough for my brain to say, okay, now I can reset and you're fine. Yeah. Right. And it can be anything, writing or running or swimming or like any number of things. But there are so many things you can do as long as you got some support in the process. Just, always try to have some support.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking of support, and shifting gears a little bit, talk a little more about your business in terms of ASM Digital. How do you support other businesses and with their marketing efforts, particularly around social media you mentioned, but what are some things you see with clients a lot of times that they may not be doing as well as they could be?
Well, I think, first of all, they're not. As a matter of fact, I just had a wonderful call with a client today, and I love her to bits, but she does every time I talk to her, it's the same thing. She's a consulting client. Consulting clients are wonderful because I work with them individually and tell them how to do social media. The problem is that most people, even when they know how, they're not consistent with it. And that's the biggest problem. So people will post, and actually people say, oh, I don't need anybody to help me with my social media. I've been posting. And I'll look back and maybe they've posted for 3 weeks. But after 3 weeks, they go back to not posting. And then they come back and they post for 3 weeks again. The problem is that the algorithm rewards you for consistency. And if you're constantly coming in and doing some and then stopping, it really dings you. It takes you down on the rankings, so you're not seen as much. So one of the things we do is we become you online. So I post 7 days a week on all of the platforms for my clients, 7 days a week on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and Google My Business, actually. So we do it on 5 different platforms, 7 days a week. And better than that, we comment back. So when somebody comments, we're commenting for them, as them. So we become them, and it really builds that consistency. And once you've done it for a while, then Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter, they all start showing you more. So that's the biggest thing. And then the other thing is going back to, I think another mistake people make is they go back to what was true 10 years ago in social media. And what was true last week isn't even true this week in social media. It changes so very fast. I will have things honestly change from morning to afternoon. I'll be working on something and I'll go back and look for a button or look for something. And it's like, oh, well, that's not there anymore. But, oh, look at this nice little toy they've got. And so we're up to date on that kind of stuff. And it's one of the reasons people hire us, is because we know exactly what's happening at any given point in social media.
That's awesome. Yeah. To your point about things changing so quickly, I mean, just no time have you seen that more often than the last 2 months. I mean, I watch YouTube a fair amount, right? Because these videos is one thing, but then I also watch it just for consumption. Right. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I watch the video and I'm looking at the date, oh, it's 1 day old. That's too old. I can't watch that. It's already invalidated.
It's too old. It's already invalidated.
So much has changed in the last 24 hours. It's not even worth watching anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, who went on their phone last week, or I guess the week before, and went, wait a second, what just happened to Twitter? Twitter ad story. Who does that? Or LinkedIn did the same thing. They added stories. Then Instagram changed your little like button's not at the bottom anymore. And everybody was freaking out. We're like, that's okay. And here's why they did it. As a business, it's really good for you, because where that little like button is at the bottom where you could see all your likes, now that's where the shopping cart is. So if you own a business that has items to sell, it's good for you. It's really, really good for you, because where people are normally looking is at that heart. And now when they look there, there's a shopping cart for them to buy stuff from your store.
Yeah, that's huge. And again, that's those are small things people don't necessarily know about, right?
Right.
So that's awesome.
Exactly.
So what are some things that you could advise businesses to do on their, like, you know, let's say that they're not ready to necessarily hire you yet, but they want to get started, and kind of like, where should a business get started in terms of what their social media platform or social media presence looks like?
Well, so, you know, I would actually say before you do social media, actually, before you do the second thing I was going to tell you, which was, I was going to say, before you do social media, start an email marketing campaign once a month, send it out, because it doesn't matter whether people open it or not. It's actually just being in there reminds them. My father-in-law was here a couple of nights ago. He owns Brennan Title Company. And he said, every time I send it out, I get so many more new cases come in because of it. And a lot of times the people who are calling me haven't even opened my email. They just saw my name. And that's exactly what it is. It's this nice little reminder. Oh yeah, that person's here. I've been meaning to call them, whether it's your plumber or your coffee company or whatever it is. Seeing their name in there is that nice reminder that, yeah, I was supposed to call them. So that's really, I was going to say my first thing, but the truth is the very, very, very first thing. As a matter of fact, if you don't even finish watching this video, stop what you're doing and go to Google My Business and pay attention to your page. Post something today on Google My Business. Make sure your address is right, your phone number is right. People change those all the time. And they can, because they just make suggestions. You're not paying attention and you go on there. Your phone number is now your competitor's phone number. That's not good. So make sure you're in there on a regular basis. If you could do nothing else, pay attention to Google My Business. That is the most important thing that any small business has for them right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, and a lot of businesses don't have, they haven't even claimed their page.
They haven't even claimed their page. Yeah, which means that if there is information out there, it's because somebody has put it out there, and it really could be going to your competitor. And you'll be surprised. Actually, I would love if you guys go and check your page, come back here, and at the end of the day, and leave a comment. Let us know, was anything wrong on your page? Because my bet is it was, because I have talked to so many people, and every time they call me and they're like, oh my God, I went and my phone number was different. Or, oh my God, my address, yes, it had my name, but the address went to my competitor. It's really bad that it can happen. But what happens is anybody can go in and say, oh no, that address is wrong, they moved. And then you do get a notification. Most people don't pay attention to that. You get a notification in your mailbox that says, hey, somebody just changed this. Well, if you don't go in and fix it, then they change it for you. They fix it for you. And they put in the new address that was put there. So it's really important you're paying attention there. Most people aren't at all.
Yeah, and there's so much fraud nowadays, so much nonsense that happens. I mean, look at how many phone calls you get, I'm sure, from like Social Security Administration.
Right.
You know, the investigations department of the Social Security Administration.
Or honestly, how many people are calling you and saying they're from Google and they're not?
Exactly. So
they're not.
It's happening all over the place. It's important to at least take control of what you can, which is one of those things. Like claiming your page is huge.
Absolutely.
So at what point is it like, okay, now I'm a small business owner. I've gotten my Google business page claimed. I've started picking up some traction with social media. At what point am I like, oh, you know what? I've done as much as I can do on my own. I need to hire Ann. You know, what are those signs when people need to do that?
So it's usually when, honestly, it's such an easy answer. The answer is if you have started and stopped multiple times, it's time to call us. If you haven't started at all and you've said for the past year you needed to start, you need to call us. But that starting and stopping thing, so many people do it. They start it, they do it for a few weeks. I've never seen anybody go longer than 3 weeks, and then they stop. And then they start again, and then they stop again. And that's just so bad. It's sort of like yo-yo dieting. Mm-hmm. And every time you have to try to build back, you're starting. The first time it might take you a month to build traction. And the second time it'll take you 2 months. And the next time it'll take you 6 months. So if you keep doing that way, you're just doing a lot of damage to yourself. So that's usually when people need to call me, is when they keep yo-yoing, or they've said for a year, I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to start doing it. Because we do more than, one of the things I have to be clear on, we're not a virtual assistant. So you don't call us and say, hey, Ann, I want you to post this today. That's not what we do. Instead, we come up with a plan for you. We're like, these are the things we're going to post. This is when we're going to post them. We schedule them out, so they're scheduled out for the next several months. And we're creating the content for you. So we write blogs for you so that can then be used. We create podcasts for you. We do YouTube videos. We help you do YouTube videos. So we're doing all of that work. We just had an attorney who just came on with us, and that was exactly it. She was trying to do all that work herself, and finally she's like, oh my God, this is below my pay grade. If I pay you, it's, I can pay you and I'm not losing business, but as it is, I'm losing business. So
yeah, I was talking to Sage this morning about about opportunity cost, right? And the lost opportunity, those hours you spend trying to do things that you don't have expertise doing, right? For example, the attorney, I'm sure she's an excellent attorney, right? She knows the law, she knows how to argue cases, she knows how to write briefs and that kind of thing. But when it comes to social media, she has no idea what she's doing. And she's going to spend 16 hours learning about what she could be doing, and then another 30 hours implementing that, right? That's 46 hours that she probably bills at $300, $400 an hour. Right. If you use the opportunity cost, factor that in, she's lost a crap ton of money.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So it's, there's a lot of that sort of stuff that we all do, right? You hired an assistant, and that's such a great thing to do. When I hired my assistant, for the first 6 months, every time she'd come in, she'd look at what I was doing and she'd go, oh, you know what, sweetie, that's below your pay grade. And so we eventually started calling her my boss assistant. Like, she's just telling me what I'm not allowed to do. No, that's below your pay grade. I'll do that. Right. And so many of us are doing that. What is below your pay grade? What should you be pushing to somebody else and letting them do for you so you can actually do the work you're good at? Plus, again, it changes, and nobody has time to keep up with that. Nobody has time to keep up with that.
Absolutely. And big shout out to Hannah and all the assistants out there who are doing the hard work and doing all the admin work. We could not do what we do without you guys. So thank you guys all for doing that amazing work.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's exactly it. Is that as a matter of fact, you know this, I'm sure it happened to you because it's happened to everybody I know. You hire an assistant and suddenly your business grows. And that's not by accident. That's because you've been doing stuff to that sort of stuff that isn't moving your business forward. And now you're freed up and you can move your business forward. We almost doubled in size within 6 months of my hiring my first assistant.
Yeah. And that's not unheard of, right? That's typically what happens, because you free up yourself for your mental energy too, right? Not just your time. Right. But your time is freed up and your mental energy is freed up to now, work on strategy and actually, how do I actually do this work better, more effectively? How do I iterate on processes I already have in place? Make them better, tighter. So that's great. Yeah,
it makes a huge difference.
So, Ann, when folks want to reach out to you, we'll put the information in the description below, but you want to tell us how you prefer people to get in touch with you, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It's asmmdigital.com. That's a great place. There's a contact form there. But you can find me anywhere on social media as Brennan Annie. That's BRENNAN ANNIE. And if you want to get to know me well, and just kind of see what I'm personally about, follow me on Twitter. That's where I spend a huge amount of time. And it's where I get probably most of my tips is on Twitter. I spend a lot of time on other sites as well for my clients, but my personal part of it, I'm on Twitter, and that's where I've got most of my followers. It's where I've created a real community there. So yeah, become a part of it over there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And any last minute thoughts you want to leave folks with in terms of, things that you want to, promote or to let people know about this coming up or anything like that?
Let me tell you, actually, yes, go to burgersandbands.org and please donate. It's the end of the year. We would have raised $200,000 this year, and we've raised about, I guess, $12,000. That is not a lot of money. It's really hard for us to do anything, but that's not what I wanted to leave you with. I wanted to leave you with this. When we're doing social media, it's so easy to do it in a way where we think, let's sell something. And that's really not what you want to do. You want to be more human and you want to give. So tell people, if you own a spice company, tell people about recipes they can make with your spices. If you own a coaching company, use motivational tips for people. Do things like this, what Drew is doing here. Give people something. If you own a plumbing company, put up some DIY things, because truthfully, do you want to go out because the faucet is spluttering when really they can take the end off and put a little screen in there and that saves that? So give them these tips. You become the person that they turn to when they need something. And then when they need something bigger that's worth your while money-wise, they're going to come back to you. Definitely don't scream the message at them. You're not the mattress guy. You are there to help them.
Imagine the Sunday. You know, like
right? Exactly, exactly. So
no,
yeah, be more human.
That's super important. That's huge. I think, you know, and to your point earlier, though, going back to the Bergens and Bens thing, folks, please do donate there. Please reach out to Ann. If you're dealing with something on your own as well, just as a message, if you're dealing with anything right now, depression, frustration, any of this stuff, and even if you're not suicidal, if you just need someone to talk to, please feel free to reach out, comment, anything like that. You'll be surprised what's out there. You know, I mean, people are dealing with this around the world, and it's something that there's help out there. There are other people dealing with it as well. You're not alone. Please reach out.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, one thing to know is that most of the counties in Maryland, and I think DC has it as well, there's something called the Mobile Crisis Unit. It's basically counselors who are trained to come in and sit with you and talk and help you decide what the next step is. So for my son, that's what we did. We called them, they came out and they guided us. They said, Ethan needs to be in the hospital. They're like, this is where you are. But at least I knew that. Right? At least we could say, okay, let's do that. Whereas I've had them talk to other friends of mine and say, no, he's okay. Let's put him in touch with a counselor. Right? But it gives you that if you're really feeling desperate, give them a call. They'll help you out.
Yeah. Well, Ann, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it so much. It's awesome. You had a lot of stuff to say, which is amazing. If you haven't watched the whole thing, folks, for who have not watched it, please rewind back, watch what you said. Amazing tips on marketing, social media. Also, Bergens and Bens, can't stress it enough. Please check it out. Please donate if you can. And and thanks so much again for
thank you. This was great. Thank you.
Anytime.
All right.